Mr. Richmond, Mr. Graves, I'll let you guys, the gentlemen, determine how they'd like to make the presentation. Both are being requested if they would choose to make testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Mr. Chairman, in February of last year, North Louisiana experienced a 500-year flood event. Thousands and thousands of folks were flooded. In August. South Louisiana, the area that Congressman Richmond and I represent, received a 1,000-year storm event. To put things in perspective, the town of Watson, Louisiana experienced about 32 inches of rainfall in about 36 hours. The average American, let me say this very clearly, the average American receives somewhere between 26 and 28 inches of rain in a year, and we received about 32 inches in about 36 hours. This was an extraordinary event. And unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, we've seen extraordinary events in this country, whether it be 9/11, whether it be the Joplin tornadoes, whether it be the Tuscaloosa tornadoes, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Katrina. We've had some extraordinary events that have happened. Hurricane Ike in your home state. And each time we've had these events, Congress has stepped up and they've recognized that the Stafford Act, the primary act for responding to hurricanes, to disasters, is insufficient. And that in those extraordinary events, the Congress steps up and lets the American people know that we've got their back, that we're going to be there. In the case of this 1,000-year flood event, the 500-year flood event, we had about 112,000 homes flood. 112,000 homes. And so, multiply that, do the math with the families, do the math with the additional businesses on top of it. To date, and I want to thank the Appropriations Committee, I want to thank the members here, approximately $1.6 billion has been provided to help recover our communities. This flood, again, February and in August, and none of those funds have been distributed to people yet due to the bureaucracy of the federal government and other challenges in getting the money out the door. Just this weekend, we had a 70-year-old woman, and I don't want to pretend to understand all the details, but I got an urgent phone call over the weekend. 70-year-old woman who's living in her gutted home in South Louisiana waiting for recovery dollars. She died. Some of the volunteers went in there. They were trying to clean up her home and trying to do what they can to make it more livable. They found her dead. This is going to continue happening. We've seen rampant foreclosures. We've seen people selling their homes for pennies on the dollar, not reopening businesses. This is an extraordinary event. And I understand that this is in Louisiana today. I get it. But you know what? There's going to be an earthquake. There's going to be a tornado. There's going to be a terrorist attack. Somebody else is going to get hit by a hurricane. When you do the per capita analysis, we're looking at somewhere around 20% of the per capita assistance under this disaster as compared to Hurricane Sandy. I want to be clear. I'm just talking about under the Community Development Block Grant funds, not all the other funds provided for Katrina, because Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery are virtually the only dollars we've received in this flood disaster. So we have 4 amendments up. One of them is a bipartisan amendment with Congressman Richmond, which again, we represent South Louisiana. It adds an additional $400 million, which is far short of what the assessment says is needed. We're not asking for anything near the 100% per capita for Hurricane Sandy or other disasters. We're trying to get to somewhere around perhaps 40%, 45% perhaps. Number 2, we have a bipartisan amendment with Congressman Richmond that would eliminate, just as was done in 2005, 2006, it would eliminate a $500,000 per structure deductible required for schools. We have schools in Livingston Parish, Louisiana, and other places that simply cannot reopen. They can't afford to reopen. And so we have students that are in limbo right now. We have parents that are in limbo. We're trying to restore the communities. This is not precedent setting. It was done before. Again, bipartisan amendment. We have a 3rd amendment that pluses up the disaster account by about $350 million, offset by GSA funds. And we have a 4th amendment and final amendment that would take what was done in the Water Infrastructure Improvement for the Nation Act of 2016, the WIN Act of 2016. Section 1144 says that that any project that would provide flood protection in a disaster area, federally declared disaster area, would be prioritized. Therefore, we take funds that are appropriated in the bill and put $100 million in an account for any project in a federally declared disaster area to go toward building those projects. We have the Comite project in South Louisiana, authorized by Congress in the mid-1980s. It has made virtually no progress in construction except for one small structure, has a long way to go, and this is the area that was flooded. It would provide more certainty and flood relief moving forward for this community, give them security in the investment of their insurance checks and other checks. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield to my friend from Louisiana, Mr. Richmond, but I just want to reiterate, everybody's going to experience an extraordinary disaster at some point. Unfortunately, they are. And all we're doing is asking for appropriate recovery because underfunding this, it doesn't save money. It's going to cost money through foreclosures, bankruptcies, and potentially even loss of life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Richmond, welcome to the Rules Committee. We're glad that you're here, gentlemen.